Welcome to your It's Almost the 4th of July Weather and Ag in Focus. Thrilled to have you along for the ride today. And I really actually do mean ride. I'm parked for the time being. But I have the opportunity today to be hanging out in Portland, North Dakota. And here in Portland, I am here because it is NDSU's Extension Service Junior Crop Scout School. And I just got done being a part of a panel talking about careers in ag. And as of late, I feel like I've had several of those, but nonetheless, it's been a lot of fun to talk to students about what happens in agronomy. If you're looking for what would you do if you have a 4-year or a 2-year education, and all of the things that agronomy does every single day. Students who are participating in these, and there was one last week in Carrington, there is one today in Portland, and then August 3rd will be in Hamden, North Dakota. What students are looking at is soils. They'll be doing a soil study. They'll be looking at crop growth stages. When I arrived, they were identifying insects in crop and learning how to take stand counts. And there also is yet to be an event where they're doing weed ID for the plants that they do indeed have right there in the building with them. So they're just wrapping up lunch, and I really appreciate NDSU Extension inviting me to be a part of their day. I do truly enjoy the opportunity to get out in front of students and share what we may or may not know when it comes to ag here in the region. Throughout the show today, would love to hear from each one of you. You are welcome to call. That is the JLA Insurance phone line. That number, 701-293-9000. And Nate Thorsrud, he's a farmer too. He owns JLA Crop Insurance. If you have questions about your crop insurance and really other insurance as well, it'd be a great time to give Nate a call. He would love to visit with you, and especially as you look at every year, there are changes in our crop insurance systems, and he'd be a great person and reference for you to visit with. You can also be following along on our Lighthouse Commodities live stream. You can see that on Acres TV, Facebook, as well as YouTube. We say thank you to them so very much. Now, I think it might be a good chance for us to catch up with our flat tire fixing forecast for today. Well, you know what? Yesterday, we completely missed out on having Weather and Ag in Focus. So thanks to many of you who sent me emails, ag@flagfamily.com, saying, what's going on? Well, President Trump was late, and he didn't give me a call to let me know he was going to run late and that it was going to preempt our show, which means many of you lost the opportunity to play Wednesday Weather Trivia, brought to us by Darter Plastics. Darter Plastics brings us the bait up. It is your own personal bait bucket, so you don't have to stick your hands in the cold, slimy lake water to fetch a minnow when it's time to bait your hook. Instead, you can use the bait up. That's going to keep fresh lake water. You can use the little strainer to pull up your minnow, and it just makes the whole process a whole lot more pleasant for everyone. And it's the middle of fishing season. Now's your time to win a Darter Plastics bait up from the Wednesday Weather Trivia here on Weather and Ag in Focus. So, Tuesday, I had a whole discussion about the dog days of summer, and they really do exist. According to the Farmer's Almanac, it tells us that there is a 40-day stretch that is the dog days of summer. Can you give me the dates, the start to the finish? Because we are right about to have them. So we're going to take callers on the JLA Insurance phone line. 701-293-9000. And Addison is kind enough to be able to take those calls so we can get a winner who can tell us what are the dates of that 40-day stretch. That's the dog days of summer. That's our Wednesday weather trivia coming to you on a Thursday as we make up just a little bit of time as to what's been going on. While Addison's handling the phones, I have some some ag headlines for us to launch into. Pastures. Today is a great day to talk about pasture. Again, I'm in Portland, North Dakota. We have had a rain shower pass through. The sun is out, and pastures are enjoying these little bitty showers that keep passing through, which is annoying for those of you who are trying to make hay and get a crop sprayed. Well, one of the benefits of a pasture is that grass can take up the water and make it very plentiful. Now, I don't graze a pasture for a salad. None of us do. But you know what the benefit is of a beef animal, or any ruminant for that matter? They can take what we might think is useless as that grass, and they go ahead and turn that into something fantastic, like beef. And if you have good quality grass, you have greater feeding capabilities for your beef animals. If we remove a pound of weeds, we're going to see a pound and a half of grass return to that pasture. And also, if legumes are part of the pasture mix, that can reduce the need for commercial fertilizer and ultimately lower our input costs as well. If you have some heavy, weedy patches in that pasture, all is not lost. One of the easiest ways to remedy that, just go ahead and do some mowing. Now, I don't mean with the push mower that you were using around the garage. No, no, no. This is the time to use the great big batwing or whatever you have for a larger size. Maybe it's an older sickle mower, and you can mow down those weeds. That's a low-cost option that allows the grass to make some fairly good competition up against the weed problem. So that's one opportunity. If you decide to spray herbicides, you can do a very simple approach. Identify what's the weed that you're having the most problem with and target that. Now, I will also mention that if you're going to do pasture spraying, July is actually not your perfect timing for that. A lot of herbicides, it's better to wait until we get more towards the fall, late August into September, because that's the time of the year that our days are shorter, and the plants know it. And they're trying to store up all their reserves for the winter. So they are taking in nutrients and inputs and sending those down to the root systems of the plant. Well, if the plant is able to take up the herbicide and put it into the root system, you're going to have a far better kill and control of those weeds than if you were trying to spray now when the plants aren't quite as actively growing, nor trying to store up for the winter. Keep that in mind. You can also apply fertilizers. You can actually have planes do some fertilizer work, or you can even do it by ground. And doing so helps promote those healthy grasses and bring about a healthy pasture, because again, healthy pastures really encourage us to lead to great beef. And like many of you, I'm a fan of beef, and I have no problem doing whatever we can to keep things happy. Now that we're into July, it is National Ice Cream Month, and I am glad for it. The entire month of July, we're able to celebrate. Now, what's interesting is some of us will say that ice creams can be harder or softer when they come out of the freezer. Now, some of that depends on your freezer, but also the butterfat content. Butterfat content of ice cream is usually between 10 and 16%. So the higher the butterfat, the softer it usually is. And if there's a great dairy consultant out there who says I got that backwards, you can feel free to call us on that JLA Insurance phone line at 701-293-9000. Additionally, with ice creams, this is the time of the year where they're at peak season. And so there's a real demand for cream. But cows are producing less milk. That's just a fact of life. It's hot. It's stressful. They're not producing as much milk as they once did. Good Lord, I wouldn't either, especially if it's this hot out. So we see that increase in price in cream as we see more cream being used to make the ice cream. And again, we're going to celebrate that all through the month of July. Most recent survey done by a dairy board says that, surprisingly, vanilla, not America's favorite ice cream choice. It's chocolate. But y'all certainly like hot fudge as your favorite topping. So, just a few little highlights about July. It is National Ice Cream Month. I posed a Wednesday weather trivia question to you. Back on Tuesday, I talked about the dog days of summer from the Farmer's Almanac. And specifically, there is a 40-day period where we count that as the dog days of summer, and we're just about to it. So if you can call in to the JLA insurance phone line of 701-293-9000 and give us the answer, we will be able to go ahead and give you a Darter Plastics bait up. And I spoke too soon. Just got a message from Addison, who's been diligently answering the phone calls today. Addison, would you care to announce who the winner was for our trivia question?
Yeah, shout out and congratulations to Sean, who was our trivia winner today. He had the correct guess of from July 3rd to August 11th.
Those are days you and I are going to avoid going outside.
Yeah, it's going to suck.
But it doesn't suck for Sean that he just won a Darter Plastics beta. You can pick that up at our studio, and thank you so much for playing. Now, let's have a listen of the livestock report from the American Ag Network, and then we will be joined by our guest, Heidi Vermeer Quist. Oh yes, that Vermeer, just like the Baylors. We'll talk to her next. Welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on the road today. I am Ag Director Bridgette Readel right here in Portland, North Dakota for the NDSU Junior Crop Scout School. And I want to make sure to give a shout out to North Dakota Department of Ag, Project Safe Send. We are starting those collections next week, July 7th in Castleton, Wednesday in Jamestown, and Thursday in Bismarck. Also, we'll be doing those from 8 a.m. to noon every day, and you can do those collections at the North Dakota Department of Transportation sites. Now, with those sites, you do want to register if you have a large amount that you're bringing in, and then remember that you can't bring paint, you can't bring diesel fuel, you can't bring kerosene, but you can bring unused or out of date pesticides. If you have questions, call the Department of Ag and make sure that you clear it up with them first before you show up. We have a guest with us today, and we've had Heidi join us before, but we're going to talk about a little different subject today. Heidi Vermeer Quist is joining us, and Heidi, I say the Vermeer family because it's that family. Tell us about who you are.
Yeah. Good to see you again, Bridget. Actually, the last time I think I called in, so it's good to finally see you on the other side. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good, good, good. Um, so I'm the third generation family member of Vermeer Corporation. So my grandfather was that Gary Vermeer who, yeah, he started the business way back in 1948, and he was integral in the development of our large round hay baler, which a lot of your listeners know about at least. Maybe some of them even have one or two of them, which would be amazing. And that is continues to be an industry that's just very near and dear to all of our hearts as a family, because we really started out as an ag company. He was a farmer. He was what our family mantra is: in search of a better way. There's got to be a
Yep.
better way, right, to do this farm work. And so he he just got busy at and was very inspired and incredibly inventive in creating machines to help farmers. And then from there, we as a family organization, family business, have diversified into the world of work and trying to make it a more pleasant experience to get out there and make progress in the world, for those who are doing the hard work.
You know, in the family, has he ever talked about, or were there
Yeah,
stories passed down of why?
sure.
I mean, you want a better way, but what sparked that? Was there a
Yep.
bad day in the field and Grandpa just said, "That's enough. I got to make this better."
Yeah, he was wired that way, and I feel like I'm very blessed to be wired that way also. When I run into issues, the first thing that comes into my mind is, and part of that maybe was trained growing up in my own family, but I also do feel like there's a hardwired sense of, there's okay, well, what can I learn from this? This isn't working. Let's come up with a better way to do things. And that's where, like I talked probably on you a little bit last time, I've gotten more into the mental health, communication, relationships, organizational health space with that same mindset, which is really cool, because it really can transition to any mindset, to have this sense of, I'm doing this work, it's miserable, how can we improve it? um and I saw him do that all the way to the end of his life. He he had some spill cap that didn't work well. The inside little piece of it had
Hmm.
had gotten lost, and so he's like, well, if I carry this, gas tank around, it's going to spill everywhere. So I need to figure out something. So he just went into the kitchen, grabbed hold, found in their like garbage, a plastic cap, cut it out, and then stuck it in there. And I mean, he was just always like thrilled to just come up with even a little solution to something. That was just a joy for him. And I think that's something I love to encourage people with too, is to encourage them to use their imagination. Like, we're not just helpless victims in whatever situation we find ourselves. Let's try to be part of the solution. And let's try to work together too. He was very good at finding people who had skills and ideas that were different than his. And because when it comes down to the round hay baler itself,
Hmm.
that was not just Gary. That was several In fact, it's really fun to go back and look at pictures at the original team that he had put together by that time. And really that what emerged in the 1960s. So after 20 years or so of doing manufacturing work, that's when
Hmm.
that amazing machine evolved. So yeah,
I, I
I
have a
hope that
I have a
answers your
ton of
question.
questions. Well, it does, and
Okay,
I've got a bunch more
I'll do
that
my
stem from
best.
there. Plus, I really want to encourage those who are listening. This is your chance to hear the family history of Vermeer. And you're right, there are Vermeer balers in this region. I grew up with a Vermeer dealer in the town in which I lived. And this is the
Great.
chance to actually talk directly to the family. And so, Heidi, were those first innovations built at home? Was Grandpa Gary a trained engineer?
No, he he had an interesting philosophy when it came to education. He valued education, but he didn't go to college. He had a high school education. He had a shop that was in the back of their property, first starting out in his childhood home, and then ongoingly after he married my grandmother and they started having their children. He had a shop. And in fact, our current kind of zoom ahead to today, our current manufacturing or engineering and testing R&D site on the Vermeer Mile is actually called Shop 48, which is really cool because it goes back to the company started out of Gary's shop back in 1948. And we want to continue on with that sort of spirit of innovation and trying out new things, which really started, yeah, in his backyard in a shop. And it wasn't probably until around 1948 when he actually found a little shop and started to hire on some other help at that point in time. And it became an actual, beginning of a business. It was called Vermeer Manufacturing
Mhm.
Company. And now we've rebranded, it's Vermeer Corporation. But yeah, you start with one step and you keep building. His network of farming friends was significant. He would talk to them about what he was doing and they would say, "Hey Gary, that wagon hoist that you just developed, I think I might want to buy one of those from you. Do you think you could make that for me?" And so then he started into that world of manufacturing, which was a totally new world. But little by little, day by day, team member, you know, by team member. And we're a very faith-filled family, so we very much believe that he was guided by God and by good principles to kind of move him forward. And his brother joined him. He had a cousin join him. So it started off really even too as a family endeavor. People, yeah, they just don't start businesses usually all on their own. You need to have that support of family, and there's also conflicts along the way that you have to work through. Um, and most definitely finding a lot of good non-family to kind of
Sure.
even out a lot of the intensity of the family dynamics. Also a huge blessing to have some folks who can kind of give like some reasonable outside perspective as well as bring their own gifts and talents to the table too.
I tell you what, you are exemplifying when we so often hear that farmers are the best inventors because there are
Oh yeah.
great innovations and ideas that come from farmers that are become very commonplace in agriculture because somebody thought that was a good idea. So we're going to continue that visit with
Right.
Heidi Vermeer Quist, not
Amen.
only about her family history, but then moving into what she does today. Heidi is a great advocate for rural and farmer mental health, and we're going to touch on that as well after our bottom of the hour news. Here we come to the 4th of July weekend and fly those flags high and proudly. The U.S. flags often are found in farmyards, at our businesses, even flying from our farm equipment. And a big thank you to Landmark Companies, your drainage leader, as well as Geronimo Power for being a part of a promotion that we're doing throughout the year where we're taking flags out to farmers. We're dropping them off at your farm shop. We're making sure they're flying from your equipment because one of the symbols that we enjoy the most in agriculture is certainly the flag of the United States. The guest I have joining me today is Heidi Vermeer Quist, and she is part of the family that brought really great innovations in the balers for haying season to our farms throughout the United States and beyond. So, Heidi, as a little kid growing up in the Vermeer family, did you realize the impact that your grandpa and others had on the farming industry because of what they were doing?
I think that I was exposed to it pretty early on. In fact, one of the favorite family photos is I think I'm about 4 years old, and then most of my other cousins had been at least born by then, and my older siblings, cousins, and my younger, and there was one big bale of hay, and they sent the little ones with a responsible um, oldest cousin to make sure they didn't roll off the bale, and the rest of us stood on ground where they knew we wouldn't get ourselves in trouble. And we had this photo shoot. And I actually remember it. I was probably only 4, but I remember being like, "Yeah, okay, this is, a big bale of hay." and
Yeah, this is
and
a
here
big
are my
deal.
cousins, and this, and I would go in to the business with my dad sometimes, and there were a lot of events. We did a great job, still do, at Vermeer in terms of kind of feeling like a family, like a team, and doing a lot of events together. I grew up going on a funny bike ride every summer with other team members. We called it VIBA, Vermeer Employee Bike Adventure, and we would bike for 3 days, all different routes. I think we were inspired by the Across Iowa bike ride, if you've ever heard of it, called RAGBRAI.
Yes, Ragbri.
Ride across America. Yep, yep. So we kind of did our own thing for that, and Vermeer just does that. They do all kinds of really fun events with employees and teams that then you know get involved in Knoxville races, or teams that get involved with a run that's happening. In fact, I remember our 40th anniversary. We actually had a hot air balloon, and then for that anniversary, that hot air balloon came, and we all had hot air balloon rides. And so I feel like I was really exposed to how it was growing and the realities of how we had an impact in the farming communities, which was really cool. I really am probably mostly myself feeling like I'm a farm girl too, growing up
Mhm.
in Pella, Iowa, and I'm a big horse person. Grew up on horses with them, and so I do equine assisted therapy now, and it's just wonderful. So, but in terms of farming, in terms of ranching, that is just a very wonderful thing that I hold in my heart. But then, with crises that occurred, like in the
Mhm.
80s, sales are going to
Oh
go
yeah.
down and up. They're going to ebb and flow. So we had to find other areas that we could break into, that with the same mentality of in search of a better way. And so agricultural equipment, I mean, the trenchers really kind of started out in that area of developing, having water, managing water in your fields, right? But found that there was a use for trenching in so many other ways. And then we had a cousin who they owned a tree farm. So we got into the tree industry, So it's all these funny steps, It's not like
Sure.
there was a massive plan that my grandfather had. He had no idea. And one of my favorite things I heard him say so often was he would talk about an area we were getting into or where there were Vermeer machines working, and he would often just say one word, which was, it's unbelievable. He would just say, this is all unbelievable, to see that Vermeer name getting used and known around the world. And then my father, who was part of it for years and years, and my cousins, and then now my generation and the next generation, we all just feel very, very blessed, and we're very passionate that we don't. It's been overall good, and we want to be a part of the next leg. Our goal is to get to 100 years. In 2 years, we're at 80. So in my
Nice.
lifetime, we'll hopefully be a century company,
That's
and
fantastic.
it'll
And
look and it'll look totally different then. It's, I mean, when I think back to even what we were 20 years ago, we've gotten into markets that we didn't know even existed probably, that time. So it's
built such
cool.
a great
Yeah.
longevity to the Vermeer name. And did it occur to you at some point in your life that you might work as part of the family company with Vermeer,
Oh, for
or
sure.
would you?
Yeah.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if you had. I know you like you said you work with equine assisted therapy. So how did you go from I might just work in the company manufacturing over to, well, I really love horses, but I want to help people differently.
Correct. So we're really dealing with that, with everybody in our family, trying to find in ways a better way for how are you designed and how are you going to work well. And certainly I think in my generation, I almost felt like a heavy burden. I'm going to have to work at the company because, and I'm going to have to be in the day to day. And in all honesty, um well, I tried. I started by working during my summers in college. I worked in the HR department. My passions were the people and the principals, and so that's my department, right? Um, as I worked there, I just saw a lot of conflicts of interest for me in terms of being both an owner and trying to do the hiring, or an owner and needing to be the one who would be doing the firing. Like, there were just conflicts of interest that you want people in HR who are kind of safe for people to be able to come and complain to, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
I wasn't going to, by virtue of being both a family owner. So I was having a really hard time reconciling my passions of people and people development with where I would fit at Vermeer. And so what's interesting is I sort of said, I think I'm going to have to pursue this area that is very natural to me, which is psychology, mental health, coaching, organizational psychology is a, passion. So I kind of went that way and said, I'm going to remain a very engaged shareholder, and which I did. And then as the family kept growing, and as we went through some big transitions in which
Hmm.
ownership has gotten distributed a lot more throughout the family. I mean, up until my grandfather passed, he owned, the majority of the business. And
Hmm.
so with
Yes.
those family transitions, a lot of movement and feelings, and what does this mean, and how are we going to govern, when a lot of us are owners, but by no means does it look like a good idea for all the owners to be like making a whole lot of noise, while day to day we just got to make machines and get them out and make fill orders and do, we got to do the work. So in 2008, so after about 15 or so years of being in the world of more psychology and consulting and people and relationships and all that, and my grandfather was passing away, I came back part-time, and I developed our
Hmm.
family office. So our family
Oh,
office then has been what has been driving what does good governance look like at Vermeer. So it started looking at our board of directors and how also can family members be best integrated if they're going to work in the day to day, which I've got three cousins now, three wonderful cousins who work at Vermeer in the day to day. Jason, who's our CEO, Mindy, who's in charge of all manufacturing, which is so cool because yeah, they're all wired to be right where they are. And then my cousin Derek, who's leading the marketing program. So they're at Vermeer. And so my kind of calling that emerged was to help in the business of the family and how the family communicates, how the family comes together. We actually have an ownership council that meets, and then we have a process to developing family if they want to get into the business. They actually have to work outside of the business 3 to 5 years. I've got a
oh,
son who's a mechanical engineer, and I can tell you most people are like, "Oh, is he going to join Vermeer?" And I'm like, "Well, he's not allowed to." At least for 3 to 5 years. So he's busy looking for another job, which is great because and I had to do that too. They started implementing some of that back when I was in college, which was really, really good because that way you're discovering who you are, and you're only going to come
hmm
back into the family business if it's really clear that you would, yeah, have a job that you could do and do really well, and so I feel like I'm living proof that there's not a clear path for everybody. You have to kind of forge a healthy path of
uh-huh.
what you find is your role. A lot of family businesses, so I do a lot of consulting now with other family businesses because, yeah, I'm sure as you can um imagine, this is an issue that a lot of times families have assumptions. Oh, well, he's the oldest, so he'll take over. It's actually not a great idea. Like,
Right.
let's look at that human, and are they do they even want it,
Yeah.
and if they don't want it, if they're doing it because they should, like there's just going to be a lot of issues, and
hmm
unfortunately there are a lot more case studies of tragic family businesses and outcomes than successful ones. And been and I feel like that's where I feel like I have a little Gary in me, that I'm always kind of like, well, but it could work. It could work if they do
Sure.
some of the right conversations, and if they're following a proven process of how to build their family business for the long haul. Um,
So,
so
Heidi, it
it's never boring. That's for sure.
it is not very often where we get to have the insight from a member of a founding family for a large company such as Vermeer. So the fact that you have done all this behind the scenes work and you're able to share it is just tremendous. And I know your passion for helping others, particularly about their mental health. So don't be surprised when I email you and we have more of these discussions, especially as we
Talk more
get
about
into,
that. Sure.
yeah, as we get into September, which is a suicide awareness month. So is May. Um, we're going
Yep.
to be talking
Yep.
more. And I just want to say thanks for all the time that you've given today, Heidi.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I hope this is encouraging to some of your listeners today. Thanks, Bridget.
I Oh, I think so, especially with farms where, like you said, people are coming back with ideas and after they've had a chance to work somewhere else. So when we
And
come
most of
back,
them are family businesses. I know that, and I
they
treasure
are,
that about them. Yep. And I want to
and their
acknowledge it's
business.
hard. I get it. Yep. Yep. It is. Yeah. But it's good work. Good work. Yep.
Well,
Thanks.
when we come back, we want to make sure to touch on some of the headlines, and we might even slide in case you're doing it, flat tire fix and forecast when we return. We're coming up on a holiday weekend. What do we think that weather's going to look like? Well, let's take a little look. Well, as you get ready to kick off the holiday weekend, you are worried about the weather, but also, what are you going to serve all those people who are coming over for the 4th? Well, American Farm Bureau Federation does an annual market basket survey. And for this year, if you are hosting 10 guests, it will likely cost you around $73.82 to supply them with a great cookout. Now, to reiterate, America's families enjoy the fact that we spend the least amount of our disposable income on food than virtually all other developed nations. We enjoy a abundant, reasonably priced food and safe food supply. I didn't say that it's cheapest, but I said reasonably priced considering how much other countries are spending of their income on their food sources. We are very safe and again, highly abundant. The survey has shown an increase of 10 of the 12 most tracked items, including ground beef, pork, beans, strawberries, and hamburger buns. There's a lot of factors influencing it. We know what the retail price of ground beef has been doing. That has increased 5.5% year on year, as America's ranchers are continuing to build their herds following severe drought, as well as just overall market indicators. Strawberries will probably cost you somewhere around $5.27 for 2 pints. That's a 12% increase. Strawberries had a price increase in part because there was a devastating frost in Florida that destroyed so many young plants early in the year. It's also a rather high labor cost situation that affects them. Your can of pork and beans is up 37 cents. Aluminum has gone up drastically this year, so that affects your overall cost. Hamburger buns are up 7.7%. But good news, potato salad went down 17%. Not great if you're raising potatoes. And that key salad ingredient of eggs, when it comes to making your potato salad, those have also dropped quite a bit. The farmer's share of that is far less, and that's probably a conversation for another day. Now, if you're traveling and you're thinking about how am I going to keep everybody entertained in the car, or if it rains and we've got to all be in the house, John Deere has a kids YouTube channel. More than 75 videos that highlight what's going on in farming, construction, and animal life. Now, these are real equipment videos. This is not cartoons. The channel really encourages kids to explore the world around them, build problem-solving skills, and give them a bit of a can-do spirit. It has more than 55,000 subscribers to the John Deere Kids YouTube channel. More than 150 million minutes have been watched. John Deere looks at this as quite the success, gives a very clear mission of education and inspiration to all of those kids. And frankly, as someone who really enjoys the History Channel and those commercials that are on in the evenings of John Deere, that's really just John Deere porn, because I can tell you that it gets everybody, even as adults, thinking about maybe I should be buying that tractor with the drive-over deck. Seems like a great purchase. So it works. And John Deere certainly is building their next generation of consumers. Welcome to the weekend, celebrating America's 250th. I think everybody will have a fantastic time. Again, apologize for being preempted yesterday, but I hope you had the opportunity to watch all the happenings in Medora with the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library. It was worth the watch. Stay tuned. Jay Thomas, a best of, is going to be coming up next.